No chewing. Good boy. Okay. Hello everyone. No. Hello everyone and welcome back to yet another video on my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jane. I'm so glad to have you with me. In today's video, we will be doing my 6th book April wrap-up. It does not seem like a huge deal for me to be reading 6 books in a month, but this is coming from someone who works 9 to 5 and reads about 1 book per month. I've been in like kind of a slump situation where I just fell out of reading ever since December. I don't think I've ever read this many books in one single month. I am so proud of myself. The first book that I finished in the month of April was Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. This is part of her Lunar Chronicles series. It is the 2nd book. The Lunar Chronicles are all fairy tale retellings. Each of the books features one princess. Oh my god, I'm sorry. I just got my brows microbladed today. I poked it and it really hurts. This one connects to both Cinder and Scarlet. Cinder from the first book, she has chapters in between Scarlet's chapters. Scarlet Benoit is looking for her cassandra, which is grandmother in French. Scarlet believes that her grandmother was kidnapped, but everyone else, the authorities, the police, are telling her that no, your grandmother was not sane and she probably just ran away. Scarlet is convinced that's not the case, so she's on the hunt for her grandmother. And along comes this character named Wolf, who is a street fighter. She teams up with Wolf in order to find her grandmother. At first, the chemistry between Wolf and Scarlet was just like off the charts. I was giggling, kicking my feet the entire time. Hi, two kitties. But then the way the story progresses doesn't allow for much connection or development of relationship between these two. In addition, Cinder's chapters I find really detracted from Scarlet and Wolf's story. Throughout the middle of it, I found it kind of boring. I also really love Wolf's character because he has this like rugged exterior. He's a street fighter, he looks dangerous, but then he's like very innocent and childlike. Was kind of disappointed because I was really excited for this story. The next book that I read was an audiobook. I don't have a physical copy of the book with me because I disliked the series so much that I shipped it back off to my parents' house. City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare, which is the last book in her Mortal Instrument series. If you've been following me for a while, then you'll know that I've been reading this series for actually 1 year now. It's a partial reread. I read books 1 to 4 in the past, I think 5 years ago. It's about Clary, who is like a normal human being in all senses of the word, until one day she goes to this club with her friend Simon and she sees something very weird. So she sees 3 people and she sees them like killing a human boy. Her friend Simon doesn't seem to see anything, but she's the only one that saw. So she freaks out, and then all of a sudden her mom's been kidnapped, and in her apartment she finds this demon, and so she's introduced to this shadow hunter world. Shadow hunters are special humans who are able to see and fight demons, and so she gets pulled into all of this and she starts a relationship with Jace. I listened to this as an audiobook because I could not bring myself to finish, I think it's 700 pages of a book that I don't like. The audiobook was 20 hours long. Can you imagine how long it would have taken me to read the actual book? Anyways, that's done. I'm glad that's over with. The 3rd book that I read in the month of April was The Push by Ashley Audrain. This one I found was misleading because it's marketed as a thriller, but is anything but. This one is more of like a fictional book. It's a book about motherhood, intergenerational trauma, intergenerational abuse, and the physical and mental realities of just being a mother and the effects of having a child on a relationship. This book is about Blythe Connor, who is happily married to her husband. Oh my god, he has the weirdest name. His name's like Pet or something. So she's married to this perfect man who's had the perfect upbringing his whole life, who has a perfect family, whereas Blythe comes from a very, very broken family. Her mom abused her when she was a child, her mom left her when she was young, and her mom was just overall pretty absent from her life. Blythe and this guy find out that they're having a child and they are ecstatic, except that when the child arrives, she feels no connection to her. She finds the child disturbing, she finds the child's actions just wrong. She feels like something is just broken with her child. She is the only one who sees her child in this way. Her husband thinks Violet is absolutely perfect. Everyone around them says the exact same thing. So now Blythe is thinking, is it my relationship with my daughter, or is there something wrong with me? I ended up giving this book 3 stars just because, like, I'm not a big fan of fictional books if there's nothing else to it, and I was under the wrong impression when I started the book. The next book that I read is Namesake by Adrienne Young. This is the second book in what I call the Fable series, but is actually called The World of the Narrows. I realized that I read Fable 7 months ago. I remember the gist of the story, but there are a lot of details that I don't remember that I feel are important. So Fable is about a girl who was dropped off on an island with nothing to survive with, no money, no belongings, nothing. When she was 16 years old, she was just dropped off on this island full of thieves and bad people by her own father. We begin the book 2 years later when she's looking to get off the island, get back to her father, show her father that, you know, she's capable of surviving on her own and she deserves a place on his ship. So this is a pirate romance story. She enlists the help of a guy named West who has his own ship to get off the island and go find her father. I've mentioned this a few times already, but it was very, very difficult to understand the vocabulary in the book because there are just so many words for things you can find on a ship, for things you can do around a ship, for diving. So I had a very, very difficult time. I picked up the book 3 times and only ended up reading it on the 4th time. I feel like there were a lot of details that also escaped me. Like, even if I knew the definition of a word, I couldn't exactly picture the scenario or the scene that the author was describing. This is the second book in that series. It's the second out of 3 books. I recently found out that the 3rd book is not even about Fable. It's about a whole other character that we don't even know about. And so I'm very, very discouraged from reading the 3rd book because I wanted to read about Fable and West. It's on hold. We'll see if I read it. This book I gave 3 stars because it was very politics heavy. I hate politics and I don't understand it. Also, the romance was not heavy at all because West and Fable were separated for most of the book. Kind of disappointing, to be honest. The 5th book that I read in the month of April was The Housemaid by Freida McFadden, also in audiobook format. So this is a thriller book. I can only listen to thriller audiobooks because I'm such a visual learner that if I listen to an audiobook, it's very, very hard for me to picture and I lose so many details. And also thrillers are kind of like one-time books. Like, if I already know what the plot is, if I already know who did the killing, who did the deed, then there's no point in me rereading this book. So thriller books are not books that I would want physical copies of. I listen to it in the car and my boyfriend is often with me in the car, so he started becoming really invested in the book and he was really enjoying it. I don't usually rate thriller books higher than 4 stars. What I really liked about this book was the plot twist towards the end. I really like that. I did not see that coming at all and it just completely changed the narrative of everything we had previously listened to. That was really, really well done. I also like the way she ends her books on kind of like a murder is about to happen sometime soon but you don't see it happening way. So this is about Millie, who is just released from prison. She's living in her car. Her living situation is not great at all and she's looking for a job, but because of her history nobody really wants to hire her. And then she sees this listing for a housemaid for this really, really rich family and she goes for the interview and the woman is so nice. The house is gorgeous, her husband is super nice, the child's a bit creepy, but whatever. The only problem is when she is shown to her room, it's this little cellar-like room. She keeps discounting the little voice in her head, like her survival instinct. And so the window doesn't open, it's a fake window. She's like, it's fine, like, do I really need a window? The door locks from the outside only. It's fine. Are they ever gonna lock me in the room? Of course not. And so I was annoyed about those parts. It's kind of like if you hear a noise in your house and you're home alone and the main character is going to look at the noise instead of running the other direction. It's kind of like that. And then on her first actual day after being hired, she goes to the house and it's like completely in a state of disarray. Nina is not as nice as she thought. She makes like backhanded comments or she blames Millie for things that are entirely her fault. You kind of follow this story of like Nina just being unhinged and like blaming Millie for everything, and then her husband being like the perfect husband. He's rich, he's handsome, he's good looking, and so obviously Millie goes towards the husband. Stuff starts. The last book of the month of April is by far my favorite. It is my 5-star read. It is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I'm sure you guys know everything about this book, but basically it's about Avery Gams, who is dirt poor, living out of her car, entrusted to her older sister and the older sister's abusive boyfriend Drake, until she gets a letter in the mail stating that she has to come to the will reading of Tobias Hawthorne. At this will reading, she meets the entire Hawthorne family, and so they're going through like who inherits what. Tobias Hawthorne is worth $46 billion. She does the math, realizes the entire family is getting about $1 million worth, and there's only one person left in the will that hasn't been named, and that's Avery. So she realizes quickly that she's being left his entire life savings, his estate, all of his homes, all of his assets, his whole inheritance basically. So the condition is that she must reside in the Hawthorne house for a period of 1 year. Tobias has left her and the grandsons clues. I don't even know about what, but just clues. It's like a game that they have to play. She's living in this mansion with these 4 handsome grandsons, and there's a bunch of riddles, a bunch of puzzles to be solved, and attempts on her life that she has to figure out who is behind. It was such a good time. Like, it could get you out of a reading slump because it was just so fast paced, and because of the mystery, it keeps you wanting to read more and more to find out what happens. I had a hard time picturing like what exactly was happening with all those secret compartments. I am so excited to read the second book. Avery is 16 in this book, which at first was off-putting to me because I don't like reading about young adults, but it really doesn't read that way. In my mind, the entire time Avery was like 2021. So those are all the books that I read for the month of April. Let me know if you've read some of these books. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I will see you in my next one. Bye!